In today's video, I want to dive into where Ethereum is going. We've just had a break above a very key level in the $4,000 zone. We seem to be heading up to prior all-time high, but how high can Ethereum go? Because we obviously know that the higher Ethereum goes, the higher altcoins are going to go, the bigger the wealth effect and the bigger the reflexivity for the rest of the crypto market. So in order to work out how big an altcoin run could be, we actually have to reverse engineer and look at how big an Ethereum run could be. So in today's video, I've got all of the data. I've used AI as well to take my thesis and align it with some specific price predictions. So I've got predictions from Grok and ChatGPT today, and I'm also going to give you my opinion on how high it could go, as well as the velocity. So when I think we could hit that high. And then I also want to discuss the top way that you can actually maximize this pump, because it's not only just investing in ETH that can help you make money. It's also looking at some of the related ecosystem coins, and we're going to talk about a few later in today's video that can help you profit potentially even quicker than Ethereum's rally. So if you do enjoy this type of content, I'm doing daily uploads at the moment, so make sure you subscribe or hit the post notification bell for daily crypto alpha. I'm only uploading bangers on the channel at the moment, and I think today's video is going to be quite interesting. So obviously Ethereum's had a major rally, breaking above the $4,000 zone. The good thing is we actually did get a daily close. Ethereum doesn't always close its daily candles above this zone, but we did manage to see a daily close above, which is very good. Technically, the weekly close should also be happening above this level as well today. That's also good news. So, I mean, Ethereum hasn't closed above on the weekly since November 2020. We all know what happened then. So this is a pretty substantial breakout, and to me, this is confirmation for a much bigger run, and I'm going to get into why I think there's going to be a much bigger run in a minute here as we look at some of the tailwinds actually propelling the crypto market. Obviously, in light of Ethereum running, we have had altcoins performing quite well. I touched on some of these in yesterday's video, but clearly the ETH betas like Aero, MNT, Lido, and some others are starting to perform quite well. It really is more Ethereum season than altcoin season right now. Of course, there are a few select meme coins which are outperforming. I mean, Pengu's been super strong. The Bonk ecosystem was super strong. And we're seeing a few coins here and there pop that aren't Ethereum related. But clearly the stuff that is doing better right now is in the Ethereum ecosystem. And I must say, from a trading perspective, we're going to touch on this later in the video in terms of the exact coins. Most of my focus is on trading the Ethereum ecosystem at the moment, because in my opinion, that's where there are the best setups, and there are some setups which haven't even played out yet. Actually, it's funny, I'm in the newsroom right now and I could see my face popping up. So someone actually just posted my my latest post here. I was like, what is that? Why is my face popping up in the top right hand corner? Good to see the banter analysts are respecting my content. But in terms of the catalysts behind why this is happening, in terms of why Bitcoin has been running aggressively and now Ethereum and now some of the ETH DeFi alts, we actually have to take one step back and look at the current macro scenario for crypto, because to understand how high Ethereum could potentially go, we have to look at the current stage. And I do believe the stage is now currently set for one of the biggest crypto bull runs ever across a variety of metrics. Now, I don't necessarily mean the biggest altcoin season ever, because 2021 in many ways was an outlier, but I'm talking about the biggest bull run ever, encapsulating Bitcoin, Ethereum, flows into major altcoins, and then also flows into the stablecoin market, TVL, and real adoption of products that are now starting to find product market fit in crypto. So let's run through some of these catalysts. The first thing that's very important to recognize is that the spot ETFs are on fire, specifically the Ethereum ETF, which has started to gain traction versus Bitcoin, and it's why we've actually seen the ETH BTC ratio increasing. There's been around $17 billion of net inflows into the crypto ETFs over the last 60 days, 11 billion coming in the month of July alone, and August is also tracking nicely, especially on the Ethereum side. We've seen as well a big announcement from Trump that 401ks can now hold crypto. Now, this might actually take a matter of months to be fully implemented. However, once it is, this will open up a massive pool of new buyers who have trillions of dollars of capital. I mean, think about how big the retirement market in the US is. I mean, now that people can actually invest in Bitcoin, Ethereum, and altcoins in their 401ks and get tax advantages, that is absolutely massive for the market. And in my opinion, it could actually be bigger than the ETFs in terms of the amount of capital that it could potentially attract. So long term, that is a massive, massive tailwind. But obviously, in the short term, that's going to take some time to kick off. What has been a very strong regulatory tailwind in the short term, though, is the Genius Act. This being approved actually made a variety of altcoins across the market, specifically DeFi altcoins, be constituted as commodities, not securities. So we have a little bit more regulatory clarity over cryptocurrencies. And it's also a massive tailwind for stablecoin growth as it regulates some of the key stablecoins in the market, which now means that a variety of DeFi and institutional use cases can open up that weren't previously available. So funds, institutions that want to park capital in efficient markets where they can earn yield, that is now possible. Obviously, asset tokenization is being pushed really hard by BlackRock, Larry Fink, and the Trump administration. All of this is now possible on chain. So the Genius Act and the 401k bill were two major bills to actually push crypto forward. And we obviously know that the Trump administration does have a vested interest towards making crypto succeed. And we have seen this in the policy. I think this has honestly been the amazing thing about this term. I'm not, just talking about the politics in general. I'm specifically referencing crypto here. A lot of the promises Trump made about crypto, I think a lot of people thought were, flat or empty-handed. They didn't think that we would actually end up getting them once he got into office. But we've actually seen a lot more action, I think, than a lot of people expected now that he is in office. And I do think this is one of the major triggers behind Ethereum, because Ethereum is extremely sensitive to some of this legislation, specifically the legislation surrounding DeFi, because Ethereum is the biggest blockchain facilitating asset tokenization and DeFi. This becomes the number one basically bet or number one proxy for anyone looking to get exposure to this narrative that is now being fueled by some of this new regulation. So I think that's the number one reason why Ethereum's really now starting to explode. It's because the regulations are actually even more in Ethereum's favor than Bitcoin. But of course, they're also in Bitcoin's favor, which is why Bitcoin really front run the entire crypto market when it rallied to 120K. The other thing we're seeing is stablecoins hitting fresh all-time highs, so new liquidity coming into the crypto market. We saw Harvard actually buying 120 million of BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF, so we're seeing real institutional demand. It reminds me of in 2021 when Tesla started adding Bitcoin to its balance sheet. Stuff like this will only start becoming more common. Bitcoin and ETH, this is an interesting point, refuse to break down, so the sell-offs on these assets are relatively short-lived, as we saw last week, and we're seeing strong reactions in terms of buy volume coming into the market. And Bitcoin dominance is also starting to roll over. Looking at Bitcoin dominance, it actually made a lower low. So this is good for the altcoin market. Obviously, this is being largely propelled by Ethereum, so you have to take it with a grain of salt. But technically, this is a lower low. And the next support for dominance, and by the way, this money noodle on the weekly has actually been a very key level for Bitcoin dominance. The next level is actually 54% in terms of support level. You could argue that maybe this is a support level depending on how you want to draw your lines, but the next major support level, which was a wick low and then the wick highs of December 2023, is actually down here. Now, it doesn't mean we're just going to go down here like this. We could easily go down like this. Bitcoin could have a run. Then we might see another leg down. In yesterday's video, I spoke about the fact that we're likely to see a rotation back into Bitcoin at some point, and this would actually be very healthy for the market, because typically what happens in these cycles, and we saw this in 2021, is you'll see a couple of alt seasons. You'll see the first one where Bitcoin runs and then liquidity goes into ETH. That's what we're seeing now, and then some liquidity goes into alts. Then often what you see, in order for a market to be sustainable in terms of market structure, is capital going back into Bitcoin. Ethereum will lag for a certain period of time. You may see dominance starting to tick up during this period, and that is the catalyst for a bigger Bitcoin run. I still do believe we're going to see Bitcoin at 130, 140, 150 plus K, and for it to get there, there does need to be a narrative and a rotation back into Bitcoin. Once Bitcoin goes on its next big run, well, then there's a massive catch-up trade on Ethereum, which can send Ethereum even higher, and that's what creates that massive blow-off in altcoins, because every valuation gets lifted. It's the rising tide that lifts all ships. So I do think in terms of creating healthy market structure, and also in terms of what we've seen in prior cycles, Bitcoin running again at some point is actually a very good thing. People calling for a massive altcoin season right now might be slightly short-sighted. Now, I do think we are going to get an altcoin run at the moment. We're already starting to see the signs of that. The first bigger altcoin run could happen very soon, but I think it's going to cool down at some point, maybe even fake some people out as liquidity goes back into Bitcoin before the much bigger run later. And as I said in yesterday's video, I'm actually anticipating that that secondary leg could very well be in 2026. And I do think there's also narrative alignment here with the midterms happening in November 2026, as well as quantitative easing likely to come in around that period. So I don't think we peak in November 2026. I think it actually front runs, but maybe that will lead to like a, Q2, something like that, peak for the crypto market. I don't know exactly. Obviously, it depends on price action. I'll keep you updated on the channel, of course, as things evolve. You never know what's going to happen. There can be black swans. There can be, massive catalysts in the market. All sorts of stuff can happen to change the trajectory of markets. But based on the current information I have, that is the feeling that I have, that we'll get a secondary peak. So now establishing the catalyst for why Ethereum is running and why the narrative is so strong. Now let's take a look at how high Ethereum could actually go. Now, the first point I want to make on this before I get into some of my AI analysis is that if you actually look at the top 5, so I'm actually excluding Tether here. I'm saying Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, BNB, and Solana. All of these have made new all-time highs at some point in the past year. The only asset that hasn't is Ethereum, actually. So Ethereum, people might think it's absolutely going crazy now and outperforming, but actually all it's doing is getting up to parity or getting up to scratch in terms of relative strength to all the other altcoins. They all had, their time in the sun, and now regulatory clarity and the institutional narrative and, the treasury companies and all of this sort of stuff is now starting to propel Ethereum. So Ethereum's just playing catch up after lagging for a significant period of time. Bitcoin is already, almost a 2x its 2021 all-time high. Ethereum at a 2x of its 2021 all-time high would be around $9,000. So just putting it in perspective, Ethereum still has a long way to go, not only to get to its prior all-time high at 4,800, but then also surge above it like Bitcoin has managed to. And other assets like, BNB and XRP are now well into price discovery. So I must say the fun for Ethereum, I don't think will happen until we enter price discovery on Ethereum. And if you look at the weekly chart and if you look at the monthly chart on ETH, this is quite a good setup. I mean, price discovery well into this range here between 6,000 to 8,000. Just in terms of the eye test, we'll get into the real figures in a second. But in terms of the eye test, this would make sense, right? Okay, maybe, we come up and then we chop for a little bit, but something like this to end the cycle, that would make sense. Obviously, it'll happen on a slightly quicker time frame than this, probably something more like this because of the timeline that I mentioned before. But this would look pretty realistic, in my opinion, for a new cycle top. It should theoretically be above the prior cycle high because, think about it this way. Last time Ethereum peaked, right, in 2021, did we have ETFs? No. That's a whole new pool of capital. Did we have treasury companies like SPET actively accumulating and passively bidding and buying more ETH? No. Did you have the ability to put Ethereum into your 401k? No. Did we have clarity around the usage of these DeFi applications on Ethereum, on-chain like we do now? No. Did we have the stablecoin flows that we're currently seeing into the Ethereum network? No. Stablecoin growth is going absolutely insane, and I actually think that will only accelerate once we get the proliferation of USD1, which World Liberty Finance, the upcoming project from Trump, is heavily backing. So Ethereum actually made an all-time high and hit 4,800 without all of these catalysts. So now you add all of these catalysts, Ethereum's in a much better position now at 4,200 than it was back then at 4,800. So if you just, and this is just moon math, right? But if you just try and visualize where things are currently sitting and then looking at what Bitcoin's done relative to its 2021 all-time high, it would be foolish not to expect an all-time high on ETH, no? Especially now that the narrative is starting to gain momentum and crypto operates on momentum. This will be hard momentum to slow down in the short to midterm. I'm already starting to see some friends messaging me that weren't that into crypto about buying Ethereum. So it's starting to gain some traction now, and that's why I don't think this run is over for Ethereum. But let's see what the AI thinks as well, because I prompted my thoughts and I also gave some contextual data to the AI to get it to come up with a price prediction, and I did this across GPT and Grok because I wanted two different models to take a look. What I actually did is I asked it to come up with the odds, because I don't think that crypto is absolute. So I could get it to make a price prediction. I think the price prediction is going to be $7,000, but I think it's better to run it on probabilities. Odds of 7,000 being 8%, 10%, 20%. And then you can kind of structure your portfolio around that. So I asked it for its 2025 peak odds, and then I asked it for its 2026 peak odds. So 2026 means it encapsulates the time frame from now until the end of 2026, and 2025 would mean it peaks sometime this year. So looking at the 2025 odds, 4.7k, which is basically prior all-time high, is 75%. So it's saying the odds are this year it hits its prior all-time high. 5K plus 62% this year, still relatively high. So it's in favor of continuing going to the upside. 6K plus 29%, 7.5K plus 8%, 10K plus 1%. So these are some of the probabilities of upside, and then you have higher volume sensitivity adjusted ratings as well. In terms of 2026 peak odds, based on the model that we ran, it's giving 88% to 4.7K, so prior all-time high, 81% to 5K, 61% to 6K, and 39% to 7.5. So there clearly is a bias here towards Ethereum, or at least, an increased probability of a higher Ethereum price as you open up the price window to 2026, which is why I wouldn't be, so short-sighted in terms of the market here. I'd be looking maybe a tiny bit longer term on these major assets than other people. But you could see even here, 10K plus, it's giving an 18% probability to. Now, Grok, on the same model, actually had a slightly more aggressive opinion. It thinks that the base case could very well be $10,000. Now, this isn't just 2025. It did say that this could be into early 2026, and it predicts ETH could reach $8,000 to $15,000 by the cycle top. A break above 4,800 signals new all-time high pursuit. Drop below 3,800 could invalidate the bullish thesis. And I think that's an important thing to recognize as well. Things are never absolutes in terms of price performance. You always want to have an invalidation. So if price drops below a certain indicator, for example, if Ethereum drops below the money noodle on the daily, which right now is around like 3,400, I think structurally this could start to invalidate the bullish move, at least in the short term. And as long as we maintain above 4,000, we are in the pursuit of that prior all-time high. So ChatGPT's model is a lot more muted. Grok is a little bit more bullish, but I think it just does signify that overall, it's not only just the eye test or the napkin math that's suggesting a higher ETH. There's actually some sort of backing to assume this. And if you're wondering what the actual prompt was, I basically asked it to consider a variety of factors here. You see, we went through a variety of models based on current momentum and current data and current catalysts, etc. You could also run the bear case, so you could run the odds of it going lower, but I was more focusing on price predictions to the upside, as I think that's what you guys would be more interested in, because likely you would have already invalidated if it does start to break down anyway, so it's probably not going to be as relevant to you. I always preach having some sort of invalidation in the market. So look, to summarize, if Ethereum is going higher, whether it be just a prior all-time high on the lower end of the spectrum or to 5, 6, 7K, what can you actually do to position in the short term? Well, firstly, I just want to establish, and this is probably very clear by now, if ETH does hit 5, 6, 7,000, this is going to be amazing for altcoins, because there is a tangible wealth effect for Ethereum that I don't think is as pronounced or present in Bitcoin, because there are a lot of ETH whales and a lot of capital situated on the Ethereum blockchain, which will be more willing, that's what wealth effect means, to spend. So the actual consumer spending on-chain will increase, aka more speculation into lower cap assets. And then you have reflexivity as people start to, bet on lower cap altcoins as Ethereum goes up and up and up. So in my opinion, if your thesis, and this depends on if this is your thesis, if you're not bullish on Ethereum, then, click off this video, because this probably won't be relevant to you. But if you are bullish on Ethereum, if you do think it's going higher, then you have to ask yourself, what narratives, what assets have the closest alignment with Ethereum's price performance? In my opinion right now, that's ETH betas. So the very clear ETH betas in the market. I'll list a few. Yesterday's video has actual TA, so if you want more exact entries, watch yesterday's video. But generally speaking, ENA, ETHFi, Lido, these are the types of coins to look into. I'm going to get into one in a second that Fabian posted in the Discord as well. Aerodrome on Base has been performing really well too. You've got Pepe as the leading meme beta on Ethereum as well, which has a very interesting setup that I highlighted in yesterday's video. So that's like the first rung of coins to look at. There are other betas, by the way. I'm just rolling some off the top of my head. The next thing you want to look at are DeFi protocols, which capture the upside to some of the regulatory shifts that we've seen. So stablecoin protocols are one very clear vertical, in my opinion. There are a couple which I'm positioned in at the moment, Clearpool and Asymmetry Finance. By the way, Asymmetry, I think, is undervalued. It's at 13 million. They're backed by Fidelity. ENA has obviously gone on a massive run. I do believe they're backed by Fidelity as well, so that is an interesting play. So there are a couple of plays. Also, the infrastructure that powers stablecoins on chain, that's something worth looking into. I go into that in yesterday's video, but that's narrative number 2. By the way, there are other picks. I'm just talking about a couple that I've invested in. Cpool obviously had their new PayFi protocol, and ASF's just a lower cap bet, obviously higher risk than other stablecoin protocols. ENA is bigger and safer, but I'm also looking at betas, right? I'm looking at moving up the risk curve and looking at riskier stuff that, okay, can go down a lot more, but in the short to midterm can capture more upside on these hot narratives. The other thing I'd look at is DeFi, tokens like Fluid that are doing very strong revenue and have strong fundamentals. I think this will be a big narrative in the market, just looking at tokens that are doing real revenue. I think this cycle is going to be a bit different, this part of the cycle, to 2024. That was like the meme cycle. That was the Solana trench cycle. Solana running made a bunch of meme coins run, but now we're seeing the Ethereum run. So this is going to trigger a whole new contingent of the market. It's going to trigger that DeFi utility contingent of the market that didn't run last year. Because on Solana, if someone made a lot of money on Sol, they naturally were moving up the risk curve and speculating on the meme coins on Sol. Whereas if you make a lot of money on ETH, yes, there are still meme coins on ETH, but it's a bit more of a sophisticated audience, likely the strongest DeFi players are going to align more with that narrative. We're going to get into some of those more in future videos as well, but these are the types of narratives that I would be looking into. Go and watch yesterday's video as well, because I go through some exact setups and I break down some of the math in a little bit more depth. I'll also leave a link in the description below. Now I want to talk about Fabian's post, because he's an amazing analyst in the Mars High Club. He posts a lot of banging, small cap alpha, on-chain fundamentals, etc. He did a post yesterday night saying, with ETH breaking past 4K, I'm looking at ETH betas again, still in ENA, which is somewhat of an ETH beta. We've been in this for a while, by the way. I've had some crazy ENA trades in the Discord. Paradise was up 100% on his latest one. I'm up roughly 60 to 70% on spot since my Discord call, and you can see a lot of the Discord members actually got onto this trade, which is amazing to see. I always love it when members win. You can see this member hit a 300% long following Paradise. This one hit a 133% long, many other ones as well across the ETH DeFi ecosystem, curve trade, lots of profitable trades for members, which is absolutely amazing. So ENA's been one that we've done quite well in. I go through it in yesterday's video. I do think it's kind of a bit hot. I would wait for a cool down there. I think there are some things that look a little bit better. Aero as well. This is a base play. I mean, I know this is up, but looking for pullbacks on Aero, I think could be a decent thing to do, as Fabian points out, although it has run up a little bit, so I probably wouldn't enter today. Fabian says 2 more pure play ETH betas I'm watching now are Pepe and ETC. These haven't run that much yet. Both have historically followed ETH closely, even if there's a bit of lag. As you can see below, there is a little bit of lag on those assets. The charts are shaping up well. ETC, so Ethereum Classics, one you don't hear much about, but it's known to scam pump hard following a big ETH move. I think risk reward of buying it is favorable, and I'm looking to build positions on pullbacks if we get any this week, and we are seeing a bit of a pullback this weekend. So look, ETH betas, they have started to run, but I don't think you've missed the boat fully, because if Ethereum is going to go to new all-time highs, ETH betas have also barely run already versus Ethereum, let alone what they would do if ETH keeps running. Of course, you have to make sure you actually outperform ETH. If you're in a beta, but it actually underperforms ETH, you may as well just long ETH, right? So definitely chart versus the ETH charts with all of your altcoins and make sure that there's relative strength there. Or if you're making a catch-up play, accept it's a catch-up play and it might not catch up. But that's the risk you run for higher beta upside. That's why they are called higher beta plays. Now, by the way, if you do want to join the Discord and get access to all the amazing trading alpha from our 6 analysts who are absolutely amazing, also Fabian, who's on the on-chain fundamentals, and myself, I post my latest plays in the Discord. I've posted multiple setups over the last 24 hours. We're actually running a promo that's only second time in history we've ever run it, and that is if you don't like the group and you sign up within 10 days, we're going to give you your money back. So I'm not confident that you'll like the group, that if you sign up using the link in the description, if you don't like it within 10 days of joining the group, just open a support ticket and we will give you a full refund. But I think you're going to absolutely love it. And I think during periods like this in the market, you just got to lock in. I mean, opportunities like this, conditions like this, sentiment like this, and catalysts like this only come around once every few years, if not more. I mean, this is a pretty unique situation where you're seeing the emergence of a new asset class, a new financial asset class. That doesn't happen much. That happens once every century or, once every multi decade. So it's a huge opportunity. And if you want to be at the forefront of that with myself and all of our amazing analysts and researchers, come be a part of the Mars High Club to help maximize the opportunity. I'm sure you can still make money without being in the Mars High Club. I just think if you're in the Mars High Club, you'll make a lot more money. That's a good ROI for you. But But yeah, if you don't like it after 10 days, you can get a refund. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. Just wanted to go in here and just kind of, just shoot some Ethereum numbers out there, give you my general thoughts on ETH. Obviously, it's a weekend, but we're going to have market open tomorrow and we're going to have a lot more actionable setups. So it's a big week of content for me on the channel next week. So make sure you're subscribed. Links to all the resources I mentioned today in the description. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.